Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. As we continue on with our journey into these amazing pens coming out of China, I thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you find these interesting. I certainly enjoy exploring these new pens. And no, your eyes do not deceive you. This is a pretty intense packaging here, pretty intense design. Again, something I've not seen before. As we came over to the back side, we'll see a little bit of a emblem there. I kind of thought this should have been the top and the label should have been on the other side. We'll take a look at some, maybe some Google Translate on that, but here we are for a translation of the sticker on here. Mahogany all wood pen. I think that's pretty interesting. You know, this is just, again, another different thing. These pens that I've gotten a lot recently, the packaging has been certainly upgraded from what we're used to seeing, which is just basically sometimes nothing, just the pen wrapped in some bubble wrap. But now they're coming in some really nice gift boxes, and that's interesting. Again, that same emblem there with MoonMan, which we've had a few MoonMan pens that we've looked at. The rest of the box is plain. The lid hinges up. Pretty nice spring-loaded cap. This was in a plastic bag, so I took it out. And here's this pen. So again, I'm into metal pens recently, and there's been a lot of them coming out of China, and this one is, I think, an incredibly interesting design. I love the simplicity. I mean, that's a substantial clip there, which is very nice. And it has some decent tension on it. And it also looks like it's just a polished brass. So that's kind of nice. It doesn't have that lacquer kind of yellowish color that a lot of some of the other brass pens have. The cap is slightly darker than the barrel. Variations in wood. And from the eBay auction that I bought this off of, I kind of saw that. But, you know, that's part of the nature of the material. I don't mind it. You know, really nice grain in the wood, kind of a nice close grain, but some interesting variations in it. The cap unscrews, and what's nice is it's metal inside the cap, so it's metal on metal for these screws. That's a very nice design feature. There's no cap liner inside the cap, but there's a brass liner all the way up and down, so that should seal up the nib pretty well. And here we have the business end. You know, that's your classic Dlike nib, and it's a bent nib, as I've been focusing on. I'm not a fan of their extra fine or fine, but I certainly do like the bent nib. The brass certainly weights it towards the nib, which is nice, and it fits well in the hand. I usually don't post wooden pens like this, and this one will not post. You know, part of that design feature, when you have that continuous diameter from the cap through the barrel, they're generally not going to be able to post that that cap. The section's a little on the small side. It's about as small as I can deal with, but it still works well. It's not slippery. You know, the polished brass is good. So this is my first impressions of the pen as received, and I'm very happy with it. It's extremely well made. I mean, those threads work together nicely. You know, you have a little brass band here at the top where the clip is, one in the middle where the cap and barrel go together. So it's just well done. I like the rounded ends, and it's not your classic cigar shape. It's a little bit different. So we'll explore this pen a little bit more, take a look at how it writes, and enjoy it. I thought I'd show you the inside of this MoonMan M3 cap. I mean, it's all brass in there. That's impressive for me. So the piece of wood was machined just to fit over that brass clap. I'm assuming glued on place, but that's really stable and makes for a nice environment for the nib to be in there. That'll be sealed up quite well with those nice threads. So I'm impressed. Again, continuing to look at the design and engineering of this pen. One of the things I think it's noteworthy of is what was done with the barrel and section. Again, you have your brass threads here, but there's a nice brass insert that extends about this far down into the barrel. So that's nice. And again, all the stress points are, contained within metal. So that's nice. So it takes the stresses off the wood and hopefully would have this pen last a long time. Your standard converter. It does have ink in it, but there's a metal band at the bottom of the converter. So it's a well-made converter. This comes off if you want to take it apart to clean it. And all the threads are very nicely done, as you would expect for brass machine threads. And I do put some silicone grease on these types of internal threads just to make them even smoother. I think it's good to do a size comparison with a pen like this. It's slightly shorter than a 992, slightly shorter than a 78G, and much shorter than the Lamy Safari, which is a long pen in this series. So let's take the cap off and look at the business end. So uncap, the Lamy certainly is the longest pen of this group by a long degree. And the M3 is short, but about the same size as the 992, and the 78G is a little bit bigger. As we zoom in on the business end, we'll see more differences. So the Lamy Safari section is unique until itself. It's very long, it's sculptured. The 78G is on the small side, and it's your traditional shape. The 992 is pretty, it's bigger than the 78G, and certainly all of them are bigger than the M3, but this is probably the most comfortable section of these three pens from my writing preferences. And the M3 is the smallest one, but I certainly do like the way the brass section looks. So we're ready to write. So what ink to put in? I haven't used this ink in a very long time. And I'm in a blue mood, so we figured we'd give this a shot. And those of you that like blue ink, I think you'll be happy with this. So overall, I enjoy this pen. And I mentioned to you before the difference in the wood coloring and grain between the cap and the barrel is just a natural variation that you're going to get with this type of material and this type of pen. And I like the stylized clip there. It's pretty springy. Probably up to just exactly the right amount of spring to it. Let's see how many taps it takes to unturn. 1, 2, about 2 3/4 turns. So the pen fits okay in the hand without posting, but then as we discussed, it doesn't post. That's no way that cap fits on the back. So this section is about as small as I'd be comfortable using. And if you try to move up from the section, this is a really big step up there, and you feel it, and it's not comfortable. So you're pretty much regulated or restricted to being within that area of the section. And it's on the small side. We'll give you those dimensions of the section. We'll also give you the pen weight so you can put those in perspective. I mean, this nib is smooth. You get some feedback. I think I could do a little bit of a smoothing on it. It would eliminate most of the feedback, but I just wanted to put this on as is. And this nib can put down a decent patch of ink. It dries pretty quick on this paper, but the Rohrer & Klinger ink dries quickly, and this paper is fairly absorbent. It's a Fabriano paper. Mike Matheson recently did a review on it. So I've always enjoyed these bent nibs. For everyday writing, they're great. You can do reverse with them, and this is one pen I think that reverse makes sense. It is a little bit more scratchy, but again, just take a little bit of smoothing to it and you can eliminate that scratchiness if that's something you want to do. I'm not a reverse writer, so not something I'm going to be doing. I wrote a letter to a friend of mine using this pen on rhodia paper, and I wasn't happy with how the nib worked. Ink flow wasn't consistent. So I had done some smoothing on it, and that had kind of helped it, but not really as much as I wanted. So when I looked at this under a loupe, I noticed that the tipping material wasn't straight, and those two iridium blobs at both sides of that slit were not lined up properly. So with a little bit of manual adjustment, I was able to get them aligned, and the nib works substantially better now. It's wetter, it's consistent. It writes like I expect a Dlike Bent Nib to write. So just keep in mind, not all nibs from these inexpensive mass-produced pens are going to arrive in perfect condition. We may also have that experience with some pens which are not of this nature, but that's the fun of fountain pens. You got to be a little bit of a tinkerer, you got to be engaged, you got to feel comfortable, you know, adjusting it and making it work the way that you want to, and it's nice that you're able to do that with these analog tools. So now I have to rate this pen, and I'm going to go 7.5. So it is usable, it is unique, it is extremely well made. I love the way the materials work with the metal and the wood. I can't rate it any higher because this section is really at the small side of usability. But, you know, for other parts of the pen, I think it more than makes up for it, and they really stayed true to the design, and that I appreciate. So we've reached the end of the video for now, so thank you for watching. May you have many, many phenomenal, great, exhilarating, wonderful, mind-numbing pen experiences. So this is the end of this video. There'll be more to come. Till then, bye.